Rev up your engines! Today I'm going to talk about the 5 biggest money pit cars out there. Now, by definition, a money pit car is a car that you throw your money in the pit, it just keeps throwing more in it. The car's worth less money over time, so it's how much money they cost, how fast their value depreciates, how often they break down and cost money to repair, and basically how reliable they are. You take all those together, here's the top 5 money pits in the United States that you can still buy. Or if you're rich enough, you don't care how much money you spend. But then again, most rich people got rich not by spending money, but by making it and saving it. So that kind of goes against the whole idea of getting rich in the first place. And in that respect, I'm not talking about any exotic cars at all. Lamborghini, Ferrari. I'm not talking about any of that stuff because they're all money pits. Now, number 5 on the list is the Audi A4 Quattro. An Audi A4 depreciates quickly. Over the first 4 years of ownership, most of them will depreciate well over 50%. I had a customer buy one once and he got tired of the car. He sold it back to the dealership when it was little over a year old. And guess what? He didn't even get 50% of his original price after 1 year of ownership when he sold it back to the dealer. Especially in the United States, Audis are money pits. One, they're relatively expensive cars. They depreciate quickly. They're extremely expensive to maintain, and they do break down. I've had customers, those things, blew head gaskets, automatic transmissions went out, air conditioning system stopped blowing cold and cost a fortune to fix. And perhaps the worst thing to do with one of those is to buy one used. I've had a handful of customers buy those things used with 100-something thousand miles in it, and they already were money pits. They didn't have to wait for them to become. With that mileage, they were money pits already. Even though they got them cheap, they found out that it may have been cheap to buy, but they aren't cheap to keep. And generally, the whole range of Audis are like that. They cost a lot of money. They're very expensive to maintain. They have very low resale value. I'd say stay away from them really if you value your money. But as I've always suggested with these money pit cars, if you absolutely have to get one, get it out of your system. Lease one. Then you know exactly how much money you're spending. You won't have to put any money in repairs. And when you're done, you give it back to them. Because you'll lose a lot less money leasing a new one than you would buying one and then selling it when it's 3 or 4 years old. Believe me, I've seen both ends of it. If you really have to get one, just lease it. And then you're done with it when the lease is up. Now, number 4 on the list of the top 5 money pits is the Jaguar XJ. Now, historically, Jaguars have always been money pit machines. People are always joked about, hey, if you buy a Jaguar, you gotta have another car to drive every day because the Jaguar is gonna be at the dealer all the time, getting fixed from it breaking down. And strangely enough, it's still true, even though the Chinese now own half of Jaguar, and it's called Jaguar Land Rover. They merged the companies. Originally, Tata bought the companies, and then half of it got bought by the Chinese. And they're making stuff in China. But here's the probably most hilarious thing that I've discovered lately. They started to get better sales, the ones they make in China, but then last year their sales plummeted over 27% in China, and they had to cut 4,700 jobs on their production plants in China making them. And this is blamed on the poor quality of manufacturing. A bunch of owners have been protesting in China at their factory over the poor quality of the ones that they bought over there. So, strangely enough, the English company Jaguar, known for poor quality for decades, they get bought by a Chinese company, and even in China, they're having quality problems with the ones that they build over there. And to my mind, it's kind of hilarious because when I was young, the Jaguars were classy looking cars. Yeah, they were money pits. They fell apart even in the 60s. But they had a very distinctive look. But today, hey, all these cars pretty much look the same. So it's not like they stand out like they used to. And with having low quality control, even in China, hey, stay away from Jaguars if you value your money. Now, number 3 is the BMW X Series. Particularly, I'm talking about the X3. As with most German cars, especially BMW, they're extremely over-engineered. They're very expensive, but they break down a lot. And when they do break down a lot, the parts cost a small fortune. And again, like all these other top 5 ones, the resale value is horrendous. So yeah, you can get a used one cheap, but my customers that did that Boy, regretted that decision. If they kept it for more than 2 or 3 years and they started throwing a fortune into the thing, fixing it. High tech, the parts cost a fortune. You need special equipment to work on them, and only certain mechanics will even delve into heavy duty work on them because it requires so much complex electronics that they have to buy and learn, and so many special tools that most guys will say, I'm not messing around with that thing. I can make good money working on normal cars and not drive myself nuts trying to figure out what these crazy Germans have built and how it broke down. You get a Lexus SUV, that thing will probably last 10 times as long, and you'll spend like maybe 1/20th the amount of money repairing the thing if you keep it for 200,000-300,000 miles. There's absolutely no reason a sane person would buy one of those things. And as I said, resale value, the first 5 years of ownership, these things often depreciate 70% or more in value. It's like a game of hot potato. Nobody wants to be stuck with a BMW hot potato when it's 4, 5, 6 years old and starts falling apart. And with BMWs especially, the overuse of cheap plastic parts is insane. Especially here in Texas where it's hot. I get them when they're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. All the plastic parts start breaking, you think, oh, well, that is no big deal. Yeah, when you find out that a hose for the cooling system that should have been made out of metal was made out of plastic, then it cracked and leaked, and you got to take the top of the engine off in order to replace it, you're going to be wondering, why didn't they make it out of metal in the first place? Well, they didn't, because it's cheaper to make them with plastic. And BMW does use cheap plastic. It does crack and break and get brittle much faster than most of the other cars do. So if you're thinking about buying one of these ultimate driving machines, ultimately think of something else to buy if you value your money. And I know some people are going to say, oh, Scotty, you're a hypocrite. You work on these cars, charge people money for them, and then you say how bad they are. Well, I'm honest to them too. I tell them they're terrible cars. Now, I've lost a few customers that way, but I really don't care. I like being honest. I'm not one of these guys that only works on BMWs and tells their customers what great cars they are as they get $5, $6, $7, $8,000 repair bills they get to put in their pocket making a profit. I tell people the truth. In the first place, don't buy one of those things if you value your money. Now, number 2 on the list is the Mercedes S600. Realize, these things are the almost ultimate in money pits. Now realize that these cars start at over $100,000 and go a lot higher than that. Their resale value plummets like a stone. Probably the worst percentage resale value of any normal car you could buy. I had a customer buy a used S600. The list price was over $120,000. They bought the car with 70,000 miles on it, and they paid 12 grand for the car. So that tells me that the car lost like more than 90% of its value. They are just endless money pits as they age in terms of both the resale value, how much money it costs to fix them, and how often they break down. Being a big giant 600, yeah, they're gas hogs, but that isn't the biggest deal. There's lots of gas hog cars out there. It's that you're gonna pay 120 grand for a car, you know, when it's got 70, 80,000 miles, it goes for like $12,000. That tells you they have problems. And yeah, they're the German luxury car, yada, yada, yada. And I mean, if you don't mind spending a whole bunch of your money, and then it's a true money pit because the money you put in the pit's already gone, and then you gotta keep fixing it. Hey, you want a luxury money pit? It's a fine luxury money pit if you like money pits. And again, whatever you do, do not buy a used one with high mileage on it. I've had a handful of customers do that, and they're all like, oh, Scotty, why does it cost so much to fix? And I said, I warned you about that. You bought it anyways. Now you're in a pickle. I tell them, just eat it, you know? I mean, if you paid 12 grand for a car, get rid of it for whatever you can, rather than put 8, 10 grand in it every so often. Over the years, sometimes even bigger things happen. Don't keep throwing money into the pit. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the top money pit car that you can buy in the United States these days, a mid-engined Porsche, or I should say Porsche. In this case, it's a Cayman S, and I pick it as a top money pit for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is their insanely low resale value. Now this customer of mine, at least he was smart. He bought it when it had 30,000 miles on it, and he paid less than 40% of the original sticker price. So he saved 60% right off the bat. Not a small sum when you consider what these things cost. Now this particular one is a true sports car. It's got a 6-speed manual transmission. They handle quite well. They are fun to drive, but they are endless money pits. Take the suspension system. We go inside here. It's all adjustable. You can make it go sport, go different ways. Well, guess what? It's all computer run. This one, they're all worn out. They clunk like mad. If I was to replace all 4 of them, the front struts and the back struts, with factory equipment, parts and labor, it'd be well over $5,000. Yeah, $5 grand to change the shock absorbers. And since it's a mid-engine design, great for handling. The engine's in here, under here. Hellacious repairs. A lot of stuff you gotta drop the engine to work on the car. The guys who work on it all the time, they love it. They get all the equipment to drop them, and they're gonna charge you a small portion to do it every time some stupid little thing like the water pump or something goes out on it. And if you gotta drop the engine, take the exhaust system out, you're gonna be paying through the nose. And believe me, you're not gonna try this stuff in your backyard. Parts on these Porsches cost a fortune. They break down like mad as they age. Now especially, do not buy one of these things that has an automatic transmission. They're garbage. They just barely get out of their own way compared to the standard transmissions. And when they break, fixing it is a lot more than the car itself is worth. I had a customer who's going to buy one of these older used, and he thought, okay, well, I'll take it to a Porsche expert before I buy it. And the guy looked at it and said, hey, if you really want this thing to run good, if you want to spend about $40,000 on the car. Mind you, this was a car that he could buy for about $6,000, $7,000. So he'd have a car that's worth $6,000, $7,000. He put 40 grand into it. So if you absolutely positively have to have a Porsche, like I said before, lease one. You know exactly how much money you're throwing away. When it's done, you give it back to them. You don't have to pay for repairs. And yeah, it's going to be a reasonable amount of money, but you would spend a lot more money if you actually bought one, had to maintain it, and then sold it when you were done for practically nothing compared to what you paid for it. So if you've got a choice between buying a Porsche Cayman and a house on the Cayman Islands, I'd buy the house every time. So now you know my 5 top picks of the biggest money pit cars you can buy in the United States, and why you should run, not walk away from these cars before your mind loses it and you buy one. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.